February 17th already. We are well into 2023, and we are on to our second episode of Fuzzy Logic here with Elsie Escobar and Gordon Firemark. I am Trevor Tomian, and today we are talking about deepfakes, misrepresentation, and I'm hoping we can even dip our toes into what I'm thinking is the antidote for these things. Transparency, maybe? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. We'll see where it goes, but we're going to have a fun conversation today about how deepfakes, misrepresentation, and misinformation, more broadly speaking, how that impacts us as creators and small business people and people with the hustle. Bree, run that opening credit if you would, please. It needs to be louder with more bass for next time. I feel like it's a danceable tune, but it's like it doesn't have the bump that I was looking for. How are y'all doing? Elsie, Gordon, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, hello. On the road today, so things are a little...
Yeah, you're in Vegas, right?
Discombobulated. Yes, Came out here for a meeting of experts and CEOs, entrepreneurs, and podcasters, and had a great time last night, thanks to the folks over at Patio.
Oh, great.
Patio. Yeah. And heading back to LA today, but first, Fuzzy Logic.
Nice. Well, we appreciate you being here. How are you doing, Elsie, over there? It is the first Fuzzy Logic before everything.
I know, right? Of course. I'm doing all's well on these parts. Thank you very much. My kid I finally remembered that they celebrated my birthday on, what is that? The Nintendo Switch Animal Crossing. And this was, mind you, my birthday was a couple weeks ago. And I took a bunch of screenshots and they just sent them to me. And they are, I think my birthday was made just looking at those. Did you know that that Animal Crossing celebrates your birthday? I did not know this. I was astounded by it. And it was so cute. They gave me a party, all the little people, and I did a piñata. They gave me presents.
Wow.
It was so cute. It was so cute.
This is something they encourage the kids to do, or the platform does automatically?
The platform does automatically. So if you play Animal Crossing and you add your birthday in there, they celebrate your birthday. And the more, like, you just go into your thing, you start playing, and it is so cute. And I think in that respect, you know, as we talked about AI last week and all of that stuff, it is super cute. This is all obviously artificial intelligence of some kind. Right. And it was so cute. I cannot take it. So it was so adorable. I was like, oh, the whole time. It was so cute. Anyway, I'll share some pictures at some point.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I have a question just to dive right into misrepresentation on that note.
Yeah.
Based on the article you sent us out this morning, Gordon, maybe you haven't had a chance to look. I know you're on the road. But Elsie sent out an article about deep faking basically in the porn industry, but more broadly is what I saw with the visual replication industry. So the first thing I thought of is someday, maybe Animal Crossing could partner with an artificial intelligence like meatbag company, and they could send an actual person out, like what are those talking cards from back in the day, like when people delivered and sang the songs and all that?
Oh my God.
That's where we're headed, right? And you won't know if it's like Julie the fake or Julie the actual customer service rep who lives down the street from you.
Oh my God. That's a little scary. Yeah, but this was all cute. Let's put it this way. There was no red flags. Usually everything I see online that has to do with some kind of weird tech that's coming up and everybody's loving it, I'm always like, but what about? But when I went into Animal Crossing, it was all like joy and delight, and my heart was full, and I felt special by these animals celebrating my birthday. So I think that's what we want from tech. We want that delight, that joy, fullness, that just wanting to play a game because it's so cute. and it made my day versus making me question technology taking over the world. So
yeah, there's definitely upsides to the technology. You know, the real trick is, what are they doing behind the scenes that we
this is
don't
true.
see?
This is true. Oh gosh, darn it, Gordon.
No, but you know, the thing is, it's a game that's oriented at kids, and they are a responsible company, and it's in their best interest to be responsible that way.
Mm-hmm.
There are other companies that aren't, so we do have to be thoughtful when we give that information in the first place. And
this is true.
You made the choice to let the kids play the game and to give them that information. So
yeah,
your
and
information.
mind you, so my little one signed up, gave them her wrong birthday, because that's the kind of kid she is.
She deepfaked their birthday information?
Yes, she did. And she also named herself My Butt. So now every time she goes in there, it says, "Hello, my butt." How's it going, my butt? And so it's like,
oh, your daughter would get along so well with me and
mean,
my brothers, who are we're now all about 30 years old, and we still have that sense of humor. She would fit right in.
So there's that.
All right, well, you know. But you know what?
I
Even
guess
that, she's learning something from that experience.
Exactly.
And so
yes, absolutely.
Careful what you wish for.
I know, exactly.
Let's hop into it a little bit. I want to, because I know we've all done research in our own places, and that's what I think we all probably realized. I wonder if you realized this like I did when I was getting into this topic and these topics, because I realized it's such an overwhelming concept that it really is. It was nearly impossible for me to even imagine how I could get my head around misrepresentation and deep fakes and the history and like what it is now and what do we deal with now and AI wrapped into it. It's a really overwhelming topic. So I ended up in transparency, which I'm happy to talk about as we go through, because I ended up being kind of focused as we left last episode with what is the antidote to the negativity. So I just explored that concept a little bit. But I'm wondering, as you both, Gordon and Elsie, Gordon, we'll throw it over to you to start. What did you find most profound in your research and what you came across? Because obviously you would have understood it before, but you would have some new information coming into today, I think.
Yeah, you know, I think what's interesting, exciting for me is to look at how broadly this applies. It's not just deepfake porn. It's not just deepfake videos of presidents saying things they never said. This is coming. Just yesterday, I was interviewed on a podcast about the legal aspects of this with respect to professional voiceover artists having their voices now showing up in commercials they never recorded. And it has all kinds of career and legal implications for them, not just the possibility of losing work, but one of the examples was, hey, if I voice commercials for Toyota and somebody comes along and puts together a Honda ad using my voice, now Toyota isn't going to be able to use me anymore, and maybe even comes after me for breach of contract, exclusivity kinds of issue. So it comes up in the audio space. It comes up in the we've always had fakers who have been essentially forging our byline on a fake blog post or something. Those kinds of things were easy. This technology has made it easy to do what used to be really hard. And another disruptive technology. Here we go. And Bree brought up the sort of surprise at how little law there is on the subject, given that this stuff has been around for a few years. And all I have to say to that is that the law is slow to move, and particularly the last 6 or 8 years, getting anything done in Congress has been next to impossible. And especially when you had the whole discussion of fake news, and that may actually be the impetus to get something is that, it's become so easy to make it fake. Nobody knows what to believe anymore. Read an article earlier today about how defamation law is being sort of eviscerated and undermined by the existence of deepfake and fake news and all of this kind of stuff, because now nobody actually believes anything is true anymore. So
Correct.
you go into court and you say, Your Honor, yes, it's a false statement, but nobody believed it. In fact, Tucker Carlson was sued for defamation not long ago. And that was the argument. The courts went in and said, yeah, it's Tucker Carlson. Nobody takes him seriously. And the case was dismissed.
Wow. Wow.
So,
That's yeah, that's astounding to me. It's astounding to me in so many different layers because I think the other layer to add to that is the fact that so many people don't even know these things actually exist.
yeah.
And to another part of this is the folks who are, let's say, in Congress are of a certain age, most of them, as well as judges, and as well as maybe some of the high-end lawyers out there that have been around for a while. Gordon, not wanting to call you out here, but they are on a certain level, and you are. Well, no, as am
white
I.
guy, right?
But yeah, but what I'm saying to you is like you are stepping into the digital sphere. You are making it. This is something that behooves you. You have a type of law that you practice and that you're well versed in, and you're showing up on live streams and you're engaging with the community and you're doing this podcasting thing, which to some might be like a whole new, like it's a new thing, right? But most folk don't even know what that is. And the laws between state to state are also incredibly vast. And as it pertains to deep fakes and the harm that they cause, depending upon where you are, like there's just so much nuance. So let's say some horrible person has put something online of you and they created it in, the Midwest somewhere. You are living in Los Angeles, and where does the law stand there, right? How is this person going to be prosecuted? Yes, the impact happened to you in LA, but the thing was created in the Midwest somewhere, and therefore, what's the law that applies? And even just that nuance on its own can get somebody away with it, if you will. That to me is very problematic.
It's not just the jurisdictional question that you raise about where someone is located. Right now, the law just doesn't address it in a meaningful way, and it's in fairness to legislators and everybody else, it is very hard to make a law that restricts anything that can be characterized as a form of speech. And where does the of parody lie? Because that. We want to protect people's rights, satire and parody, to make fun of things, to call attention to things, to do a deep fake of the president of the United States doing something goofy or those kinds of things. But as soon as you draw those lines, someone's going to show an example of, hey, it caught this thing when it shouldn't, and constitutional law really looks at whether something is under or over inclusive or over broad. If you cast too wide of a net, it's unconstitutional. If you cast too narrow of a net, it's unconstitutional. So it's a real tightrope that they have to walk. That said, that doesn't mean they shouldn't try, and we shouldn't be having a broader, louder national conversation about this. Some of the states have enacted some law on this, but even the question of who do you sue is a challenge, because do you go after the companies that are making these tools that make it so easy and they're selling it, so there's a commercial venture thing going on there? Or I think really the wrongdoer is the person who sets up and makes the deep fake using these tools. But if they're not a deep pocket, you may have some damages, but how do you collect? How do you get a lawyer willing to take the case when there's not much chance of collecting? You better have deep pockets yourself so you can hire and pay those lawyers. And so it really does put victims of this stuff at a tremendous disadvantage.
Yeah.
The criminal laws do not address it in any meaningful way, with the exception of the revenge porn and the deepfake porn arena.
Yeah. But even then, though, there are little ways in which you can avoid prosecution, because again, there's a lot of little nuances here and there. But before we go on, this is something that I did not know. I knew about deepfakes primarily because, being a woman, I do become aware of harm when it comes to marginalized genders a lot faster than the general population, because we are wary about these things. But as I was doing research for this, I didn't really actually realize that the term itself, deepfakes, came specifically from pornography and a very specific thing. So I'm going to quote from a technologyreview.com article. And this is what it states within it, just in terms of calling out historical, history, I guess. So, quote, deepfake started with pornography. In December 2017, Samantha Cole, a reporter at Motherboard, discovered that a Reddit user with a screen name Deepfakes was using techniques developed and open sourced by AI researchers to swap female celebrities' faces into porn videos. Cole tried to warn readers other women would be next. So interesting how fast a lot of that stuff happened. And I mean, kudos to the porn industry and anything that has to do with porn and sex, because the innovation that happens in that industry, I think, is astounding, and it moves fast. And so I do believe that it really, regardless of regulation of porn or whether or not you are, pro or against porn or whatever, there is something to be said of watching that industry and how it behaves and how that it will be impacting mainstream regardless of what it is. I'm curious if folks would have actually listened if it would have made a difference when things like this were going on. So yeah, made a difference.
I like the folks, I know exactly who you mean. If anybody would have, that's interesting. The perspective of how much faster it moves because of that industry. I would love to talk to somebody who maybe has been a part of that sometime too, because it is an interesting vantage point to take, because it's the extreme in some ways in terms of vulnerability. It's the extreme in terms of exploitation as you meander down that path. I would think it's not it's a very fast slope if you slip either way. So it's good to know that they have also innovated to keep it in check, maybe to some extent, and to make it public knowledge and to keep it in the public domain, because I often think, that there is a whole person behind a business. So when I think about that industry or any others, even if I disagree with what they do and what they're carrying out, there is a series of decisions that go into making that thing operate and who is making those calls. And I follow the industry a little bit. And there are some females who are now running companies in the porn industry who have taken a much different tone on things too, because similar to the way you presented that article, Elsie, coming from the vantage point of someone who is at a greater risk for that. And that is that's not opinion, that is fact, in terms of how those industries treat people. So I'm hopeful that more voices being involved has an impact on it, because if it's the same people that we're trusting to run it over and over again, it probably doesn't change. And it does seem like it's probably a slippery slope with some of that stuff.
I really do think that the porn industry is a good bellwether for how things are going in society generally. As goes the porn industry, goes the rest. Because it's where the easiest, fastest money comes in. Lots of new technologies have started their lives in the porn industry. Membership sites didn't occur. Online events didn't occur until the porn industry made it a necessary thing, and then the solutions were developed. And so hopefully the solutions to the problems will also follow and be triggered by some of those kinds of things. I wanted to, if you don't mind, I want to go back to something you started in on, Elsie, earlier, and that was this discussion of where technology aware. We have an affinity for technology. Probably everybody watching this falls into a category of people who are relatively savvy to what's going on with tech and media and those kinds of things. But as you said earlier, there's a lot of folks out there, old folks, people with children. These are the most vulnerable segments of our society to be victimized by this kind of stuff. And when I say victimized, not just of being, I don't know if anybody wants deep fakes of old people having sex. Maybe there's a market for that. Maybe the porn industry is listening, but victimized by falling victim to believing this stuff is real. And it's children, it's old, and it's also people with less access to technology because of their financial circumstances, their economic position, and so on. So when they see that video of, to get away from porn, the president saying something that he didn't actually say, or some politician, or something where they're, that's going to influence a vote, perhaps, they're more likely to believe it because they aren't tuned in to the issue, aware that it can happen. So I think it falls on those of us who are tuned in to shout it from the rooftops and be vocal about it, so that the awareness grows. But I think we have to be mindful that we're a microcosm. We're not the whole society, and there's a lot of folks out there who just aren't thinking about this.
And that the creation of even just of images, right? So it doesn't even have to be a video. It doesn't have to be an audio. The creation of some images that are more easily shared, especially in social platforms, to a discerning eye when they're looking at something going like, oh my God, I cannot believe that this is happening. And the ease of use of being able to expand that out and share it's very precarious, and it's very challenging. And to your point, Gordon, right now we're having, especially for like financial services and being able to get hacked, if you will, like I just literally got a text message from my bank saying that my card was compromised. And I immediately went into the website, right, to see, and it said fraud alert if you're getting a text message not from blah blah. And I was like, oh, interesting, and I didn't click on the link. Because it did look a little weird, but I sent it to them, and they're like, yeah, please don't click on that link. And I could see somebody who is not as well versed, to just off of the urgency of the fear, right? Oh my God, look, I cannot believe that happened. In terms of images, it's even worse, because you look at something and you go like, oh, wow. And you just immediately want to share it. You don't question it. You don't follow up on it. You don't try to verify if what you're seeing is real. And that comes into play too whenever people are sharing images that have already happened, or they were created years before by AI and are now being used to support some kind of news that is happening now. And people don't understand the difference between then and now. How are you going to look at the metadata? I mean, do you look at the metadata of pictures?
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, and that technology, that technology, Photoshop has been around for what, 30, 35 years.
Yep.
And so people should know how easy or how feasible it is to make a really deceptively good looking fake image. Yep. And yet still people fall victim to this and get
what would be the remedy to that, though? Because you're right, like people wouldn't know, but with images in particular, I think it's people don't question. I mean, to pick on Tucker Carlson for a second, I don't know the guy. It seems like a terrible guy, but I don't know him. But like when you talk about that, it is coming from a person that seems like they're really there, who are just spouting stuff off that seems quite extreme most of the time and seems very hateful to other humans, and we'll still buy it. So if you were to remove the tone and remove the advertisements and remove some of the more addictive qualities of video, then you would still have like a text that's maybe even harder to tell that it's fake. And then if you took that to audio, I think you would get the same thing. So I think then if you took it to an image, then you're, like you said, Gordon, that's been around for 35 years to Photoshop someone's face. So I guess in response to that, my quick thought as we move into like a more broad societal look at things, do you have any thoughts, either of you, on what we do with that information, knowing that definitely text, definitely images, definitely audio, like those would be three things right now that you could pretty easily would be complete BS, and it would be easy to sell. And then you get to video now, which is getting better, as Elsie and Gordon, you were talking about. And the next step is like people showing up at your door, like we joked about. But what do you do with the areas that you encounter every day online to try to cross-reference, or what's the remedy to even starting that discussion of, I'm questioning what I see, now what?
For me, it's digital literacy. But yeah, Gordon, it looks like you were about to say something as well.
Well, I agree. It's about digital literacy. It's about the awareness and knowing that we need to apply a skeptical lens to things. I do think we need to ask our elected representatives to do more about this. There are some strategies that might work. And ultimately, I think we can leave it to judges and juries to decide the merits of a particular fact scenario if we make laws that can actually address this. In some states, there are laws that relate to the right of a person to control the use of their name and actually most states have name and likeness laws, but it generally applies only in a commercial use scenario. But maybe we need to look at expanding what we consider a commercial use nowadays, when ripping somebody's image for the purposes of deceiving others into taking some kind of an action could be considered commercial. It's historically just meant trying to sell something, basically. So if we could sort of massage existing law in those ways, maybe expand it. Again, we get into First Amendment jurisprudence about when is it okay to impose any restriction on speech, and that's why commercial speech is subject to some more restriction or regulation than ordinary political, artistic, creative speech. But that's that. Yeah, data privacy. Amy is right on the money there. We need to get the companies that we do business with to not share the information, and and it isn't always the cell phone company that's selling your phone number that leads to you getting those rapid dial machine phone calls about the extended warranty or the solar panels on your roof, or those kinds of things. But we also need to about who we give our information to, and are we checking a box that says yes or no, you can't sell it. So it really is a war on many fronts that we're going to have to really fight hard with. Or just throw our hands up in despair and say, well, it is what it is. There's no privacy anymore. There's no solution to this. And maybe we go back to a barter economy. And if you want eggs, you have to, let me have one of your goats.
Oh my goodness.
And, actually, nowadays with goats, it would probably be 2 goats for a dozen eggs. But that's commentary on inflation. No, I mean,
nice.
What's the solution? Let's burn it all down and start over with a new economy that's not built on money in exchange for eyeballs. The reason that Tucker Carlson succeeds, inflammatory messaging attracts controversy, attracts attention, and we live in an attention economy. What are the networks doing?
Yeah.
They're selling our attention to the advertisers who will interrupt the content momentarily. And news and information and shouting at each other, those kinds of things has become entertainment.
Yeah. Interestingly, like what I would love, I guess, as a way that it affects us, the everyday people, would be to have a website kind of like Snopes, right? That really focuses in on being able to provide just the straight up information. Here's the image, or here's the video, here's what it was, here's why, and provide receipts for that, meaning here's the initial video, it was picked, this is the time that it was recorded, blah, 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 this is how it was shifted, that kind of a thing. I don't know if Snopes does that. I don't really actually go into Snopes. I literally just put it up in front of me. It has changed so much since when I first came across Snopes. It's like all fancy now. And so being able to have something like that would be really great. And I think another layer to this is the fact that we have to, I think whenever we do share even the fakes, we have to take responsibility for our own amplification of what these are and what we're bringing attention to your point about the attention economy. Most people, even like, let's say I'm doing it with the intent of sharing an image and saying, this is fake, this is not okay. No, for whatever reason, education, right? Somebody could see that post, grab that post, and then use it for in their own way, right? So I'm already providing the tools, the weaponry, I guess, for somebody else to weaponize that information.
Yeah.
So
maybe the ethical solution there is, if you're going to share something, make sure you put a stamp of inauthenticity on it. Say, false or fake or something like that in a big way, so that it can't be as easily manipulated. I mean, there's always going to be a way, but
and as you know, we are lazy. We don't want to do any of that. We barely read articles. Because we barely read articles, because we look at the headline, we're like, oh, let's share this. We don't even verify if the information in the article is true. And that's just human behavior, that we're doing things like that, right? So, it's obviously, I am saying this. Yeah, go ahead.
Which is why the folks on the Twitters and the Twitches and the everybody of the world have had to impose their community guidelines and their censorship, to put it in the terms that the detractors are using. And that's why some folks get up in arms that, hey, I posted this message about something that's important to me, and Facebook marked it as a violation or put a label on it. Well, if we don't want the babysitters to be stepping in and doing that for us, we have to babysit ourselves and do the hard work. We have to do the uncomfortable stuff, not be lazy.
Yeah. Ask more questions. I mean, like, I feel very simply that asking more questions can go so far. I so frequently ask the people close to me, and it's hard to not ask it in a way that is condescending. So I'm always learning how to improve on that, but to ask, where did you get the information from? Not like I think you're wrong, but I am like, my first step before I even process what you said is, did you get that on Facebook? And if so, what did you click on? What was the source? It's not that Facebook is wrong. It's what the source. Facebook is a phenomenal resource early on, but it's become like this kind of cesspool of trust issues at the very least, I think, which is concerning, because it shouldn't be your place to start for those reasons, I think, a lot of times. But go ahead, Gordon.
Those questions can feel really confrontational. If you're the person who made the original post and somebody comments, hey, what are your sources? That can feel like a real challenge of the person's character, even who posted.
Well, it is.
So,
to be honest, I think that the truth is, I think the truth is, it's like, I don't do it to be disrespectful, but it's absolutely to check that you are who you are, say you are. I mean, like, I that's why I love LinkedIn so much, is I think LinkedIn allows me to click on people's organizations. And if the organization then has more cross references where I expect them to be, then I'm like, I relax a little bit. But if that is a quick place to see, like, oh, I work at $1 billion company, but I have 4 coworkers, like, and I started last year. Okay. So it is asking those second and third level questions. It's a bear of a thing to do. We're running close on time, so I want to get right to the heart of the matter and ask you both a hot question. So, all right, you ready? You're both leaders of the podcast industry. You are both someone that podcasters look up to. and we respect the hell out of you. I just want to say language barrier, but I think the podcast community has grown to love the brands that Elsie Escobar is involved in, including her own. And I think Gordon Firemark is a name that people look to and say, that's a guy who has been places and is respected by other people in the industry. So there is in some ways like a lot of pressure, I would think, on the things that you all do day to day. I'm curious if you had a wand to help guide the industry, not to say that you have to do it this way, but like some boundary markers that you would love to see in podcasting that could maybe help be a guiding light to other industries, because I think podcasting leads the ethical conversation to me so frequently in media. Is there anything that you would like to see in the podcasting industry that you think could serve as a bit of a shining light, a beacon of hope for this conversation so that we don't get screwed so often?
And I'm assuming that you're asking about misrepresentation and deepfakes.
A specific, yeah. So when you
Okay.
talk about like,
Just
yeah,
wanted to
thank you.
clarify that part.
Yeah. So on the audio,
Okay.
like when you talk about like verifying audio and text, because we use show notes and we use show notes to drive SEO, and then we use the audio to drive our business and our brands. So yeah, I thank you for clarifying the specifics, because I think the podcast mechanism drives so much of an economy. So I think that because there's money involved, it can potentially be a beacon for YouTube and Facebook and all these other platforms that are maybe struggling because they've been too deep into it for too long, doing a very bad job at it.
I think if I were to start with something that is a day-to-day kind of a thing, when it comes to specifically misrepresentation, I would implore the podcasting industry to go beyond a headline or a soundbite. So let's say somebody is being called out for some nefarious something or other, or something they said, a point of view, something, whether it's a larger, more famous type of a producer, or somebody who has been working, let's say, at a school that has a podcast, and they said something that was problematic in some way, shape, or form. That takes fire. What you see online are clickbait articles, headlines with quotes on them. Podcaster said, so-and-so said, and then you just run with it, and now you hate them. You just hate them because that's what they said. What I would implore for the podcasting industry is to take a moment to recognize the context in which whatever was said, because the context of what was said may or may not add to your decision, and that would be amazing, and that's great. Then you can make an informed decision. This person is a horrible human being and must get off the air, right? Because the receipts are there, the voice is there, what they said is there in full context. But you will find, and this has happened to me, I'm triggered by a post that I see, and I'm like, oh, that person's just so awful. And then I take the extra step to go ahead and just listen to a larger clip, if you will. And I'm not saying the whole episode. I'm saying 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, the context in which whatever was said. And then I'm like, oh, it's not what I thought. It's not what I thought. That's not what they said. And that's when I get like, whenever I see people being pulled in that way, I don't want that to happen to me. I am incredibly fearful of somebody clipping something I said and using it against me whenever, and then I'm going to have to go, well, that's not what I meant. I mean, I didn't, that's not what I meant. If you listen to the whole conversation, you'll see exactly what I meant. So that's how I would do it. How about you, Gordon?
Well, I've been saying for a long time that podcasters are in this position of responsibility and trust with our audiences. And I think that, if you're doing a comedy podcast or something like that, there are, the boundaries are different. But many of us doing interviews, we're doing topical subject matter stuff, doing journalism and thinking and being just, and not just another voice in that echo chamber. So we need to do our fact checking and our due diligence, and that includes going and doing a little deeper than just looking at the headline, just listening to the soundbite. As you were saying, Elsie, listen to a little more. Make sure you've got the context right. think and speak outside this echo chamber and always be asking ourselves, hey, is one doing something where confirmation bias is coming into play? Am I echoing stuff because I believe it, or am I saying these things because it seems to actually be the whole story, the truth? Obviously, sometimes you want to make a particular statement. You want to get a message out that maybe is in complete agreement with the prevailing view. Then say so. This is going to be controversial. Not everybody believes this. Here's what I want to tell you. Here's what I want to share. And just being a little more, Trevor, you used the word transparent earlier. When you have a bias or a particular slant on something, it's okay to say so. And most of your audience probably shares it, and that's great. But if you want the information to be there for the next person who comes along who hears it to say, is that really true? And encouraging our audiences to ask these questions. Is it really true? Is this confirmation bias at work? Those kinds of things. It's really our responsibility as media creators is just to do it in an ethical, moral, responsible, and be obvious and clear about our own intentions and biases.
Moving into, sorry about that.
Go ahead, Elsie. Yeah.
Moving into the whole deepfake functionality of it, and there are processes like Descript who can actually do overdubs and can do the whole thing of having a different voice come into the mix and all of that stuff, right? So it's a little bit harder, I think, to regulate from the outside in something like that, especially as podcast creators, right? It's much harder. So I'm going to make an appeal in terms of the ethical components, and for us to, as a industry, lead from a place of values and mission for ourselves, as to the leadership within companies, the leadership of your podcast production, the leadership of your own podcast by yourself. So whether it's a larger company or just you, to be absolutely on point what your ethical or value system is for production, so that you can avoid that. So it's not about, oh my God, let's have fun with this thing that could be really fun. But if it really doesn't align with whatever your value system is, then you're not going to have those troubles. Now, if you want to push the envelope and you are one of those people who want to do satire and want to do all of a little bit more of a comedic type of a thing for it, have it as a mission statement, have it front facing, have something that we can go in there and go like, oh, well, this is the type of show that they are, and then back yourself up. You don't hide behind it, you go forward with it, right? So I think leadership needs to step up first, and everybody else will follow.
One thing that has been historically the kind of thing that leads to labeling and industries self-regulating is the fear that government's going to come in and do it with a heavier hand. And so this is our moment, I guess, to impose on ourselves some guidelines, some ethical, a code of responsibility or something like that for podcasters, and either maybe we have a badge of authenticity, or a badge that says this was an AI assisted podcast episode or something like that. Or, well, lots of different ways to do these kind of things, but it is incumbent upon us to include some kind of disclaimer message. One thing I will say, though, when you get into that area of satire and parody, there was actually a case not long ago where a fellow was charged with criminal as well as civil claims because he made a fake website that looked just like the local town police department website, but it was clearly satire. It was posting, all of these ridiculous things on there that anybody who actually looked and read it would go, this can't possibly become the police department. And in his defense, he actually said, if you have to tell your audience that what you're doing is parody or satire, then it doesn't work, because part of the game is fooling them a little first to reel them in, and then hitting them with the punchline, hitting them with the irony that makes it funny and calls things to attention. So the First Amendment is to work in there again, free speech and free expression. So again, any of these kinds of guidelines that we're talking about can't be so rigid that they deflate the balloon of whatever someone's doing. Again, if you're a parodist and everybody knows you do parody, then your stuff will land a certain way, and that's what we should be doing, being clear and transparent.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Obviously, I mentioned transparent. It wasn't to necessarily plant that seed all over the place, but it's to me, it seems like the simplest, shortest term solution is just be really upfront with what you're doing. I think just to sort of wrap and go with my half of 2 cents on a thing is what I'm going to try to do is allow as many people into my organization as possible as it grows, and let there be podcasts and let there be shows and let it be literally like, I have this vision of, if you want to sit at my board meetings, like, by all means, come on in. And I know that that's like kind of an extreme approach, but I feel like if I approach it that way early, it might give me a chance to build an organization where people do feel like they're a part of, like, the sales meetings, for instance. So if you're going to get got, you'll at least know how I got you. Because I think that shy of that in the world we exist in, with all of the possible fakes, it is going to be very, very difficult to come up with systems that hold everyone accountable, because the people that want to use it for nefarious purposes will always probably find that loophole to get through. So I think it's incumbent upon us to just, like you both said, lead the industry, try to push the industries that we're in to make decisions that support our values. And if they don't like that, then we make our own new industry. And I feel like that's what podcast did. So I want to applaud you, because, again, both of you have been leading the community that is podcasters for a long time. And a big reason that it resonated with me as a business person is because podcast as a community seem to have more ethical boundaries, and at least be more transparent about where they fell within what they were talking about. It seemed to be a better chance that I would know if what I was being fed. And so I've always really, really appreciated that about podcasters and about the people that lead this industry. And of course, that is you too. So thank you for doing that. I think it makes a comfortable place to grow. And that's really why I'm so excited to continue these discussions with both of you and with the people in your networks, and continuing the conversations afterwards through She Podcast and through Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and through Libsyn and Elsie Escobar, the brand. Like, you have so many places that you both influence, and it's a real honor to follow the lead that you all set. Next week, as we get into another deep and connected topic, we have public versus private, the balance of transparency, and the expectations of keeping things off the record, which falls right into what I was talking about with how I want to roll with my business. I want to let everybody into the board meetings. Not everybody's going to agree with that approach. And there's going to be a lot of businesses that are uncomfortable with it. So I think it'll make it a fun place to connect, because there are investigative journalists that, like, put on different suits and different personas and all these different ways to try to get to the heart of the matter, which is generally truth, and they do it in a dishonest way. So gosh, it just folds right over on itself, doesn't it? when it comes to misrepresentation, it is a beast. I am so grateful for everything we got through today. I wish that these conversations could last a whole day, because there is a whole day's worth of possibilities in not only what it is, but where it can go and how we can each have an impact on it. And again, just Elsie,
we do have a chat
for all
room
that
and comments that'll keep going. So
correct. We'll come and check.
The conversation going.
We will keep the convo going at the fuzzylogic.com. We have that going on over there. We have Fuzzy Logic on Instagram and most of the places that you'll get social media. And then, of course, you can follow each of us by the Numospect hashtags. What is it called? Handles. That's the word. Showing my age a little. And Elsie Escobar at all of her handles, as well as She Podcast. They have the podcast movement coming up. Not podcast movement. The She Pods conference is coming up, right?
She
Elsie?
Podcast Live, correct. We do have She Podcast Live is happening in June. this year over in Washington, D.C., and it's going to be a one-of-a-kind and has always been a one-of-a-kind conference. Please, if you believe in having these type of conferences out there, please buy a ticket, because it's great for people to clap and be like, oh, so glad we have this. But really, we can't live without actually people buying tickets and showing up. So please do that. We also have the Sonic Bloom BLOOM awards that have just launched. As part of that, we're going to be handing out those awards. My partner, Jessica Kupferman, this is her brainchild. Everything about this is Jessica's. And it is a new awards program to recognize incredible podcasting projects created and hosted by underrepresented voices across the globe. And they're there to highlight inspiring, innovative, and high-impact podcasting projects created by cis and trans women, non-binary individuals, and anyone who identifies as gender fabulous. Now, the categories are very interesting, and they're super inclusive and amazing. Just some of them that we have is like the Musical Genius Awards, the Helping Hand Award, the Podcasting Disruptor Award, and you can nominate yourself. You can nominate other people, but please go ahead and check that out. Links have been shared and will be shared in all the different places. We cannot make change in the world without your help. So please go ahead and help us out. That would be amazing.
Sorry, I hit one too many buttons because I wanted to put this up. Let's see if it works. Bree's going to yell at me for trying to click one too many buttons. I want to get the podcast live. So where would we go to see more about the awards? Because I have the She Podcast Live.
It's right there. It's in the sonicbloomawards.com.
Okay. sonicbloomawards.com.
Yeah.
Love that. Cannot wait to share it with my wife and her skateboard groups, because they roll the same way in terms of the people they seek to serve. So I know that she has many, many friends in the Southern California skate community that are going to be stoked to follow what you are doing with the awards and to see how they could maybe get involved. It brings me so much joy to see different communities that I know of that don't know each other yet, and to see the future. So I'm very excited to follow the awards, very excited to be following the lead up to the June conference. It's going to be really exciting. Gordon, anything to throw in before we call it a day here at Fuzzy Logic that you have going on?
Well, just mention a couple things coming up in the month of March that I've got going on. I'll be sitting at Podcast Movement Evolutions, leading a panel on the legal stuff for podcasts and podcast networks and so on, with my colleague Merlin Jean-Louis, who's a fabulous lawyer from, she's by coastal New York and LA. She's terrific. So she and I are going to be the legal eagles on that panel, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of folks there in a couple of weeks. That's the first, I think, the 7th of March. And then at the end of March, I'll be doing my business and legal fundamentals for podcast growth and profit event. You can go to event.podcastlaw.net, and I'll see you there too. That's a fantastic opportunity to learn what we're doing wrong and how to fix it and do things right. So there you go.
Excellent. Thank you both so much for calling those things out. We want to be supportive again, because where you go, we want to go and be supportive of those things. So I'm looking forward to next week. We'll be here same time, same place. Shout out to Restream for making this broadcast possible. Their software is so accessible for regular independent creators. It's not always the perfect place. If you're trying to do the highest production, that's not who they seek to serve. They seek to serve regular podcaster people like us. And I love this platform that is Restream. So check them out. Huge shout out to Bree, the clever Biatch Campano, who's in the background running our graphics and making sure all of the logistics work out. She does a fantastic job of keeping things on the rails for me all the time, including for this show. And I'm so proud of what she has put together in the graphics. Like it all came from her and Gordon's head a lot of days. So it was really, really outstanding. Another really great episode. I'm looking forward to next Friday, again, 8 a.m. Pacific time, which would be, I think, 11 o'clock East Coast time. You'll see the posts. Follow us at Fuzzy Logic and get involved in the conversation. We'd love to hear what questions you have coming out of today's episode, any thoughts you have coming out of today's episodes, and anything you want to hear the Master Grandmasters Elsie and Gordon bring up in future episodes. That being said, Bree, I get to say today, please hit the button so that we can end. I think that's a wrap for today.